right. So, hello and welcome to Generational Archives, the show where we connect, heal, uncover through intergenerational conversations and archival research. I'm Dr. Raina J. León. I am, as you know, your scholar, creative, intuitive researcher, and I am at the table, the dining room table of my parents this time with Dr. Norma D. Thomas and my father, Mr. Eddie León. So, Mommy, how are you going to introduce yourself today?
Just as always, being glad to be here with you today and happy that we're recording in my house.
I know, with our first guest, who is my father. So we'll introduce, or Papi will introduce himself in just a moment, but we wanted to start with our check-in question, which is for all of us, which is, how do you like your coffee? Mommy, how do you like your coffee?
Well, I like my coffee with powdered cream because I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't put any milk products in it. And some sort of artificial sweetener because I'm diabetic and I don't put sugar in it. So it's a lot of those things. I don't drink my coffee black.
Okay, Papi, how do you like your coffee?
Coffee with the creamer and a little sugar.
You like brown sugar.
Brown sugar. And that's it.
Okay. I love the way that Papi makes a coffee, which is why Papi always makes a coffee for me. And every time I come into the house, I say, Papi, make the coffee. But I want to say that the best coffee that I ever had was either from my Titi Gladys, who just everything that she touches on the stove is gold, or from my Juanita, and especially the old way of actually heating the grounds on the stove and heating the milk and like the whole colander of like draining the water. It's a whole ritual of coffee, and just I like it the same color as the inside of my wrist. And with whole milk, even though I probably shouldn't have the whole milk, but it's the whole ritual of also being in a space that scent is just emanating from the pot, and it's a conversation. So for me, coffee is just not generally the drip, although when Papi makes it, it feels like home.
And we drink coffee all day.
Yes.
Whether it's 20 degrees, 10 degrees outside, or 100 degrees outside. I've acclimated to being in a Puerto Rican family, so it's coffee all day, and it could be strong coffee sometimes. So coffee, and more coffee doesn't keep me up at all.
How many times of coffee a day?
Several.
Several times, 3-4 times a day.
In the evening, in the middle of the day, in the morning, and several times a day.
Yep, I used to love that about going to my Juanita's house too. Of whatever it is, whatever the weather, there's always time for.
And you would say, "Oh, Juanita, it's too hot," and it didn't matter.
No, it didn't
you would
matter.
still get this coffee, and it'd be 100 degrees in the house.
Yeah, but you always need coffee. You always need coffee. So I asked a question because it's one of those things that's not captured in the records, right? When we think about generational archives, when we think about doing this ancestral research and preserving for the future our memories and our connections with our peoples, how we take our coffee is such an intimate thing, but it's not something that would be in any kind of document other than being in like a journal or something. So that is our gift to the future. Welcome y'all to that invitation. And you might even think about, how do I take my coffee? How do my parents take their coffee? Is this also a generational thing? Does the way we take our coffee indicate family and home? So Papi is our first guest.
You want me to add something to that coffee thing?
No, I'm good, Papi. I'm good.
No, I'm saying, you want me to add a comment to that coffee?
Oh, yeah. What do you want to say?
I just want to say that in a Puerto Rican family, one of the things that happens with the coffee is that a lot of times people drink coffee just the regular way, but with us, when we grew up with coffee, we drink coffee with bread.
Yeah.
And bread, we dip the bread in the coffee.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Some people may say, ooh, they don't like it that way, but with us, that's a meal. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, for poor people, that will be your meal, coffee with bread. And so it will sustain you throughout the whole day.
Yeah, I remember my Juanita would often make us that, when I was a kid, I think earliest I had coffee was maybe 2 or 3. I used to have it in my bottle even. And I remember when my Juanita stopped taking care of us when I was going to school, and Mommy would make coffee at home, and I'd be like, so I'm ready for my coffee. And Mommy would be like, no, you're 4. Like, what is the matter with you? But it was that, right? Like, I had my coffee in the tin cup with some pan, and that was the morning breakfast. It was probably more milk than actual coffee, but even talking with Mateo, my husband, for those who are not familiar with our family structure, I would say, okay, the kids can have coffee at 3. He'd be like, that's weird, Raina. But yeah, I appreciate that context for coffee as a meal and connecting it to also the humble beginnings. So, Papi, one of the things that I've always been fascinated with is that anytime you and your siblings talk about the past or locations, you often recount all the specific addresses of where you lived. So can you tell us, like, some of the places and the addresses of where you lived? Like, you started out in New York.
In New York, we lived in 124 East 128th Street. That's in Manhattan, Harlem East Side. And then in Philadelphia, we lived at 1242 West Girard Avenue, right? And from there, we moved over to South Philadelphia, to 2101 Taney Terrace. And they're the 3 places that we kind of gravitated to.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so each of those places had its distinct character. Can you tell me about what the place in New York was?
Well, the place in New York was it was right beside Park Avenue. It was a mixed neighborhood, blacks and Latinos, Italians on the opposite side of the street, on like maybe the 24th Street. There were Italians about at that time, I think, a little further up there like that. So the neighborhood was divided ethnically. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. It was pleasant because we did a lot of activities in the streets. Mm-hmm. We played stickball. We went to the river because we were close to East River. So we went in there, called ourselves fishing. Mm-hmm. I saved my friend's life one time because he almost drowned in East River. Right, I jumped in the water and brought him out. And so we played baseball. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun in New York City.
Did you ever catch anything in the East River?
No. Because we have makeshift fishing rods. Uh-huh. We couldn't catch anything with those rods.
Well, and I want to say, you had told me once that you all had a lot of free time, like you would be on the roofs, jumping from roof to roof.
Yeah, what happens in New York is that you have 2 lives in New York. You have one in the streets and one in the roof. For example, because people, with so many people, that people will go up in the roof at night, especially on hot weather, to get fresh air.
Yeah.
And things like that. Then people had houses, and they built houses they built houses in the roof. They also had bird houses. People catch pigeons, and they will train pigeons, and they have pigeons in the roof, and they're very possessive very possessive of those pigeons, and they will fight you and for those pigeons if you try to get rid of them. So it was, you have a life in the streets and a life on the roof.
Yeah. Well, wasn't there a story that you told about jumping from the roof with your friends and one person fell? This is what I remember anyway.
No, we jump from roof to roof. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing that you play with, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't remember anybody actually falling from the roof, right? But we did jump from roof to roof. Mm-hmm. And abandoned houses too. We went to abandoned houses. Because sometimes we'd be chased by gangs or chased by cops, so we go to abandoned houses to avoid the cops and the gangs.
Well, and I have this picture of you and Uncle Mike and Felix and Titi Connie and it's on a fire escape.
That's on 128th Street. On the fire step, that's all of us right there.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to. I think I'm the guy drinking milk.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
That's right.
Philly showing his muscle. Michael showing his muscle.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know who's that in the
Didi
back.
Connie. Mm-hmm.
Connie in the back. That was the picture. Yeah.
Well, and I remember there was one apartment. It must have been here where the bathroom was down the hall.
Yeah, the bathroom was outside. Most of the times, the bathroom in New York City were on the hallway, and it was a communal bathroom. That because other people lived in an apartment, and one of the things that happened in our family was that the landlord was overcharging us for years, and my mom took him to rent control, and she got a judgment against him, and then after she got a judgment against them. The judgment was that she can live there for 2 years without paying rent.
Oh, really? Wow.
Right, and so he got mad at my mother, and he hired what they call like a witch to put a spell on my mother and to get out of there and things like that. And he started building. He went outside, started building. He dug up a grave.
Oh, wow.
And told my mother that. This is where she's going to be at. And my mother prayed afterwards, and and my mother said in her prayer, whatever he has in mind for me, let it be his way. And he wound up getting what they call that disease on the liver, cirrhosis of the liver, and his stomach blew up real big, and he died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another part of that story, right? Because there was a clown in the story. What was that story?
Oh, that was, we had a lady that was, that one of the ladies that he moved into the apartment was what we consider a witch. And she moved next door. She didn't have no furniture, right? But she was always making, having like whatever ritual that she was doing, some type of ritual. And ever since then, that's when I started having a lot of nightmares and getting sick and seeing what I consider evil figures at night. And I would wake up and I'll see like a demon sitting over me, and I would be so afraid that I would be and I lose my voice at night. And my mom would always have me with all kind of crucifixions and saints. I have them all over the bed at night. That's the only way I could sleep. And ever since then, I was kind of had a phobia about being in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, so one day my mom went out, and we were in the living room, and we heard a noise, and I opened the closet. And when I opened the closet, I saw this figurine on top of the closet. It looked like a clown, but it had gold teeth. And it started looking at it like me, and it was like alive. So I hollered to my brothers, La cosa mala, the evil one is here. And we started running towards the living room. And we went to the living room, and we all jumped underneath this bed, right? And Nelson was a baby. But he was crying. And And when we jumped on the bed, the thing grabbed me by my leg. And the thing grabbed me by my leg. And so I always had a rosary on. I shined the cross on him. When I shined the cross on him, it backed away. And then my mother came. Then we were afraid. We were always afraid we would come out the thing like that. My mom came, and she did. She started blessing the house and all that. And we attribute that to the lady next door. That she was probably possessed. We thought she was possessed. In New York, one of the things in New York happens is that they have so many different cultures that people bring their culture thing. You have people in my family, for example, they have people that read your palms, people that do readings, right? One of the readings I got was that I was bones, and then I wouldn't survive my youth. And then after that, my mom stopped taking me to places like that. My father took me to places to that, but my mom said no. She said she believed in God. And that's what she don't believe based her her belief in.
Yeah.
So she stopped taking me to those kind of things because I was really sickly when I was small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were in the hospitals for a year, right?
Yeah, for years sometimes. Mm-hmm. So they said that they predicted that I wasn't going to survive my youth.
And here you are.
Yeah.
Here you are. Well, and then eventually, so Daddy Ning was a merchant marine, and so traveling 6 months out of every year, and Manuelita staying home with you all, 6 at home, 2, and then sometimes 7 at home, and your sister Ada Irma in Puerto Rico. What was that like for you too, as a young person, of like your dad is gone for a long time?
For one thing with that was we were always hopeful and real excited when my father come home, but we knew that he would be gone for a long time. And the thing about it with my mom, she was a single parent, right, in a very, very hostile area where she didn't really speak English.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult for her, right? And that time what made it very difficult was that they have really strong welfare laws. That the welfare caseworker was like a police officer. They come in your house and they I don't know if you ever seen this movie Claudine.
Yeah.
Right, whereby they come in the house and they can take your welfare away from you, and your aid from you if they suspected that you had a man in the house, and they would look in your closet looking for shoes and men's shoes, and based on that alone, they would take your thing like that. But what stopped that was that people started getting very, very violent towards them and hurting them and basically actually killing some of them. So the state got involved. The state of New York got involved, and they made them get away from that police action type of thing. They were no longer required to report those kind of things. It was it became more like what it is today, caseworker kind of thing. But that was very difficult because a lot of times we had food, we didn't have food. My mother, sometimes she would feed us and not eat for days. And that's why my mom always had problems with her eating habits because my mom won't eat sometimes in order to feed us.
Yeah. And that must have been really hard to see her. Yeah.
And then, but my mother was a very giving person because she brought many of her family members, right, into our house, right, and took care of it. In fact, one of the ladies that my mom brought in there was Bibi's girlfriend, Olga. And she had no place to stay, and she lived with my mom. Nephew lived with my mom with us. So my mom took a lot of people in the house.
Yeah.
And give them a chance to make it in the United States.
So, you were the first one born in New York because Titi Vilma and Uncle Mike were born in Puerto Rico, right? And so, but how much conversation did you have with the family in Puerto Rico while you were growing up?
Well, I only saw my sister Mary and Adaima when they came from Puerto Rico to visit. Right. Adaima never liked the United States, so she will go back immediately. Right. But Miriam stayed with us and she lived with us. Thing like that. And Miriam lived in. Miriam was very, very smart. She was real smart. So, and but she was kind of rebellious. She had a fight with my mom. Right. We jumped her.
So did you talk to your grandmother at all, like Cornelia or?
No,
or
we never met. I never met my grandparents. The only person I met was Papa Feli in Philadelphia. I met him when we moved to Philadelphia. What I didn't know at that time was that my Papa Feli and a lot of those Papa Feli, my grandfather in Philadelphia, he was a retiree from the Naval Yard. And what happened with him is that after the Second World War, they let all the minorities that work in the Naval Yards go, and they kept the white folks. So a lot of minorities that had those jobs, they were paying good well at the time. In order to survive, some of them kind of built their own little businesses.
Yeah.
My grandfather had a restaurant business. His brother had a cleaning business.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in my uncle lived in North Philly on Ridge Avenue. He had cleaners up there, and then my grandfather lived in right on 13th Street, right off Girard Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
But that
What was the restaurant called?
It was, I don't remember the name.
Yeah, yeah.
But he tell like that he sold water ices and sold thing like Spanish food,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what he sold.
What prompted you all to move from New York to Philadelphia?
What prompted us to move to Philadelphia was the fact when my brother came to my mother, my oldest brother said to my mom that that they were trying to force him to move in, join gang, and he said he didn't want to be a gang member. He wanted to go to school, and so my mom told my father we have to move. So my father decided to move to Philadelphia with his father, and we stayed there for a little bit. But within a month, my mom said we have to get out of there, and we got an apartment around the corner. You know, and so.
And then you moved to Philadelphia. Did you like Philly at first?
No, I didn't like Philadelphia. We didn't like Philadelphia because it was different. Mm-hmm. It was more racist, right? And it was segregated, and we were the only Puerto Rican family besides my thing in a black neighborhood. So we had to make adjustments, and we had to make adjustment. But
well, and I never asked this too, but I remember you telling me that Ining had told my Juanita when she first came over from Puerto Rico that their relationship, their marriage would be a challenge because he would be perceived as black, and he was like Afro-Boricua, but she would be perceived as white, and that would be a big conflict. Do you remember seeing any of those kind of conflicts with your mom, with my Juanita?
I saw that. I saw the racism. My father said that to my mom when she first came over, that would be because he mentioned that in the United States it was based on color. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned there was a lot of racism, and there's going to be a problem. And it was also a problem when we, for example, went to the welfare office and my mom was white and she had all these dark-skinned kids.
Yeah.
And so it was like a trail of kids, right? It was a trail of kids, all dark-skinned, and she was the only one white person there. I remember one time they had a caseworker that came to the house, and he cut my mother's welfare checks off, and my mother went to the office with us, and she was explaining to the guy that her situation, and he said something, and my mom smacked the shit out of him. She, my mom was heavy-handed, and then after my mother slapped him in his face like that, she said, "If you don't want to do anything for my kids, you take them." And she left us in the office and walked away. And then when she did that, everybody all came out the office, and they told my mom that they took their casework away from her, and they restarted her benefits, right?
Where was this?
In New York.
In New York.
So, and in New York at that time, they have rent control. That's the reason why my mom was able to win that case against people. Yeah. But that's some of the hardship that we went through.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's one of the things that happened. Another thing that happened was that then I remember. You want to hear about fight?
Yeah.
I remember that we were downstairs. I was downstairs in the basement. There was a girl down there, and she was supposed to be. We were playing, and then her brother told her mother, "Ooh," something like that. And I ran out the basement, and she sent two guys after me. To find out what I was doing. They chased me. She gave off them $2 nickels. So they chased me down for 3 blocks and brought me back to be confronted by this lady. And she hollered and screamed at me. And she was the lady downstairs in the basement. And her name was Pilar. And Pilar, I don't know if she hollered and screamed at me, but I came upstairs crying. And I told my mom what happened. And my mom went downstairs and her and the lady started fighting. And the lady was a big lady, but my mom was getting the best of her. And then her husband came around, and they called him Tarzan, Tarzan. And he was a real muscle guy. So he came and he pushed my mom down, got my mom off the woman, his woman. And my father was coming around that time. So my father just got off work, he was still like that. And my father and this guy started rumbling and started fighting in the streets. My father was a prize fighter. My father could fight. My father was a tough guy. And so the guy came to my father, and Vilma was real attached to my father, so Vilma jumped picked up a bat and tried to hit the guy. And the guy took Vilma and threw her to the ground.
Oh my God.
Once he did that, my father knocked him out. Right? So the next day, a gang of people came to my house, banging on the door, looking for my father. And then my mom got a message to my father, what happened, and my father contacted his brother. His brother was a longshoreman, baby, and they came over with their gang, and they broke the guy's door down and threatened him and the wife and looking for him, and they decided to move out because my uncle was
also a prize fighter.
Plus he was kind of dangerous.
He was a gangster.
They came in there. They had white guys in there with rags on their hair, with pipes and everything, and they didn't want that kind of drama.
Oh my! I think that's one thing too. Like, there's always a fight that's coming up in a story with you. Well, even your name, right? Your name, Eddie. Can you tell those who are listening, where did your name come from?
Oh, the name came from my father's best friend.
Yeah.
And my father's best friend was having a relationship with a married man's wife. My father told him about it, that he shouldn't be doing that, and he didn't listen. And the husband came and killed him. Yeah. And my father named me after him. And that's the reason why I never liked that name, Eddie. Yeah. Because I was one of the Spanish names. So I changed my name from Eddie to Eduardo. And I went all my life with Eduardo. Right?
So much so that mommy didn't know your real name until like a few years ago.
So what happened was that instead of spelling with the U, I spelled it with a W because it made white people say my name right.
Yeah.
If I'd have spelled it with a U, they would have said it right. So
I think I only found out about the fact that your real name wasn't Eduardo when we had to get passports and we had to get your actual birth certificate from New York, and that's where it said Eddie. And I said, wait a minute, all this time I thought your name was Eduardo, but on a lot of legal documents it's spelled with a W, not a U. So all over the place you're Eduardo, or lately it's Eddie.
Yeah. But remember, we went to security, the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, because you had actually added a middle initial.
Yes.
Remember?
That's my confirmation name.
You added a middle initial.
What is your confirmation name?
All of us got the same confirmation name.
Angel? No, what?
No, Miguel.
Miguel, okay.
We all wanted to be Michael the Archangel.
So I did not know about the same confirmation name. This is also new information. Every time we do these conversations, or looking at a document, there's always something. And that's our podcast for this week. Thank you so much for listening to this interview with my father, Mr. Eddie León. And I hope that you continue to listen and that our interviews, our process, inspire you in your journey. We have one more part to this interview, which will explore especially the history of my grandfather, Daddy Ning. And then we'll also close our season with connecting you, thinking about how to transfer these practices of archival history and documentation and examination to art production as well. I am greeting you this time from Italy, from the practice of creating a residency that is centered on folks, BIPOC, folks from the global south, in the creation of work or just in breathing. And part of that too is living into the dreams of our ancestors for repose and restoration and inspiration. And I hope that this project in the work of ancestry and ancestral recovery and relationship inspires those who are artists to also be in relationship. So we look forward to connecting with you through Patreon, through the comments, through the YouTube channel, however you would like to greet us and meet us. We are eager to connect. And we hope that you have a great week. Bye, y'all.